We got her name cleared, and that's what I came out, hopefully get more of a sentence, but it didn't happen. We went with the Japanese, and it's their country. I'll take it. I don't want to ever hear his name mentioned again. So whatever happens to him from now on, I'm no interest in him whatsoever.
No, I'm looking forward to getting home, meeting Hannah, and just leaving all the baggage that happened in that courtroom, and try to move on from here the best we can.
Today's case brings us all the way to Tokyo, Japan. Tokyo is a city that combines millennia-old traditions with futuristic technology, all the way from neon-lit skyscrapers to historic temples. The city is home to a robot hotel. From the reception all the way down to the room cleaning, it's all controlled by robots. The food available in Japan attracts tourists from all over the world to try some of their world-famous cuisine. Not to mention, you can buy almost anything from vending machines placed around the city. If you find yourself walking around the city, you'll come across the busiest intersection in the world. But what you won't come across is any rubbish. As one of the cleanest cities in the world, it almost looks brand new. I myself have never been, but it's definitely on my list of cities to visit. Today's story begins with Nicola Furlong. She's a 21-year-old woman from County Wexford in Ireland, and she's daughter of parents Andrew and Angela. She was the eldest of 3 siblings, with 2 sisters named Andrea and Hannah. She attended Dublin City University, studying international business and languages. Nicola was from the seaside village of Curracloe, which is in County Wexford. Her family owned a roadhouse bar in the picturesque beach town. In her spare time, Nicola liked to play camogie for the local team, and her family were also involved in horse racing, as was Nicola. She was described as a quiet, hard-working girl who was popular with her friends. And her interest in Japanese began when she took the language in 4th year, when she was in the Loretto Secondary School in Wexford. She loved it, and she chose to further her studies for the language in 3rd level education. Nicola and her friend Sarah, also from Wexford, they decided that on their 3rd year of college they would embark on a year of study in Japan. So on September of 2011, the 2 girls left for Japan, and they took up a residence in a college dorm at Takasaki City University of Economics. This is about an hour drive north of Tokyo. On Wednesday the 23rd of May 2012, the 2 girls decided to go into Tokyo. They had some tickets for the Nicki Minaj Concert, and that was on that night. They wanted to blow off some steam, get dressed up, and have a night out together. Nicola was in contact with her mother before they went out, texting her saying she had her tan done and they were excited to go. Angela, Nicola's mom, she smiled at the message. The next day, which was the 24th of May, Nicola was found dead in a hotel room in Tokyo. The Gardaí in Ireland were then informed of this, and they called out to the parents' home in County Wexford to break the gut-wrenching news. The family were informed there was likely foul play involved, but there were no further details, bar that their little girl was dead. A post-mortem was taking place later that day in Tokyo to try and determine exactly what happened to Nicola that day. A spokesperson from the Coe Plaza Hotel, where Nicola's lifeless body was found, they told the press that they called an ambulance early in the morning, and that a 19-year-old male had gone voluntarily with the Tokyo Metropolitan Police, who had responded to the scene. The previous night when they had gone to the concert, Nicola and her friend went to get the train just after the concert had finished, but they ran a little late and the train it had left without them. So now they had a number of hours to wait before the next one. While the pair were waiting at the train station, they had met two young American men, and the men invited them back to their hotel room, where all four had a drink at the nearby bar. The two men were 19-year-old musician Richard Hinds and his friend 23-year-old James Blackston. He was a dancer. At 3:20 AM there was a complaint of loud noise coming from a room on the American men's floor. A member of staff went to check exactly what it was, and they found Nicola laying on the floor of one of the men's rooms. Nicola was then rushed to a nearby hospital. It was reported while she was in the ambulance she was still alive. However, when she arrived to the hospital at 5:53 AM, medics tried to perform CPR and they injected her with adrenaline, but unfortunately, Nicola Furlong was pronounced dead shortly after arrival to the hospital, and the cause of death was strangulation. Richard and James were then arrested. Richard was charged with the murder of Nicola, while James was charged with sexual assault against Sarah, Nicola's friend. Both men claimed they were innocent, claiming drugs and alcohol were the cause of Nicola's death. Why would they even say this? With the cause of death being strangulation, this was complete nonsense. Richard did admit to pressing against Nicola's neck, but stated that he did it so lightly that it wouldn't be possible to cause her death. The two men continued the defence, saying Nicola and her friend Sarah were party girls who had come on to the men. The men then insisted they were not sexually attracted to the women, but they invited them out for a drink just to be kind. They then claimed the women had become heavily intoxicated after a few too many drinks, and Richard, he couldn't leave them alone in that state. So him and James brought them back to the hotel rooms. Richard said once they got back into his room, Nicola woke up and she was being sexually aggressive. And Richard said he didn't want to have sex, as he didn't have a condom with him. So Richard forcefully said he didn't find either of the girls attractive, but now he is saying the reason he didn't want to have sex, he didn't have a condom. Which one is it, Richard? So in an effort to stop Nicola shouting, Richard said he pressed her neck for around 30 seconds. In court he said, and I quote, "She was talking loudly at first, but gradually she calmed down. I remember her breathe abnormally." End quote. What the men didn't know was that in the taxi they took that night, back to the hotel with Sarah and Nicola, there was CCTV footage. And this footage would show their true intent that night, and the true events that took place. Whilst in the taxi, Nicola and Sarah were seen passed out, like the men had said. However, whilst they were unconscious, James Blackston was seen sexually assaulting Sarah. And the two men could also be heard exchanging words in the taxi. They said, and I quote, "Richard Hinds, these itches fell into our lap. We can F them, we got to keep them F'd up." And James Blackston replied, "We're going to F them and leave them in my room." End quote. After they said this, the two men, proud of what they had done and intended to do that night, they fist bumped. Once they arrived to the hotel, the women were still unconscious, and because the two women were unable to walk, Richard and James had to borrow wheelchairs from the hotel, and they wheeled the two women into the lobby of the hotel. This is where there were two hotel employees, and they helped bring Nicola up to Richard's room, and they placed her on the bed. These hotel staff obviously didn't know the relationship. In their eyes, she was his partner. And what would go down in the hotel room that night, only Richard Hinds truly knows. However, the doctor who carried out the autopsy of Nicola, he told the court her death was caused by suffocation through strangulation, as there was a 5 cm wide mark around her neck. The doctor stated it was likely a soft object, like a towel or a piece of clothing, that had been used to strangle Nicola. In support of this, Nicola's DNA was found on both a towel in the hotel room and on Richard's top, so it could have been either of the two. Her body also had defense wounds, with scratches from trying to remove the object from around her neck. He stated the death would have been slow and stressful for Nicola, as the strangulation likely lasted several minutes. Nicola's blood was also found on Richard's bedsheet. Richard tried to explain this, saying, whilst they were having sex, Nicola vomited blood, and after this, she wanted to continue having sex. So again, Richard's story keeps changing. He didn't want to have sex, he said originally. Then he said he didn't want to because he didn't have a condom, and now he's saying they had sex. Police later found an unused condom in his jacket pocket, so it was obvious Richard was making these stories up as he went along. Despite the mounting evidence, the defence stuck to their original story, that Nicola was a drug user, and they followed up saying that there were needle marks on her thighs. But the doctor who done the autopsy on Nicola shot this down straight away. He explained there were 9 needle marks on Nicola's thigh, as a trainee doctor tried and failed to get blood from the woman's body. The defence also stated in Nicola's blood she had lidocaine and Xanax. However, there was a reason for this also. Lidocaine was used in a hospital on a tube, which was used to resuscitate Nicola, and she was prescribed Xanax by her doctor back in Ireland, due to her anxiety on travelling to Japan. So with all of this evidence against Richard, in 2013 he was found guilty of the murder of Nicola Furlong, but Richard was a minor in the eyes of the Japanese legal system when the murder took place. In Japan, suspects are minors until they are 20 years old. This meant that Richard Hinds could only receive a maximum sentence of 10 years for the cold-blooded murder of Nicola. Whilst the lead prosecutor told the court Richard Hinds deserved the death penalty, the American musician was instead given the maximum sentence of 10 years with labour, with the possibility to be released just after 5 years. He stated Richard Hinds showed no remorse for the murder of Nicola, and that by trying to portray her of a drug user after her death, he had further violated her dignity and tainted her honour. Just before Richard Hinds was being sentenced, he looked over at his parents. He then smiled and winked at them. Richard Hinds went on to serve his time in Fuchu prison and was denied his early release in 2017. He was placed on a 5-year program in the prison in an attempt to create a sense of remorse. But officials stated his attitude while serving the sentence was not that of a man who just ended the life of a young woman. But still, he was only going to be serving a maximum of 10 years. So his 10-year sentence will be up this year in November 2022. Richard will be 29 years old when he is released into the world. Understandably, Nicola's family were outraged at the light sentence he was given. They feel Nicola's life was worth more than 10 years, which goes without saying. In the aftermath, Nicola's mother Andrea said, "He not only ended Nicola's life, but our lives as well, and he doesn't deserve to breathe the same air as us." Richard's friend James Blackston received just 3 years hard labour for sexually assaulting Nicola's friend Sarah. He was released in 2015 and he returned to the US to continue his career as a dancer. Shockingly, James not only assaulted Sarah, but also a Brazilian woman in 2012, just a month before he had met Sarah and Nicola. Both Sarah and the victim from Brazil, they both said Blackston had offered them a drink of tequila but they then blacked out. It was very likely both women had been drugged by him. James Blackston just announced in 2021 that he will be getting married soon. What type of person would marry a man after knowing he drugged and assaulted 2 innocent women while they were unconscious? After the murder, Nicki Minaj took to Twitter to pay respects to Nicola. In June 2012, family members went to Japan to take Nicola's body back home. They wanted to give her a proper burial, and her funeral had a huge turnout in her hometown. During the service, the priest said, "The Nicola you all knew and loved had so much ability, so much energy, and so much charisma. And she had so much to offer in this life. We grieve not just for the loss of life, but what might have been." Nicola's 10-year anniversary was in May 2022. Her mother said a few words to the local Irish news station. "I will visit the grave and I'll have her a little garden that I made on the grave full of flowers for her anniversary. I miss her so much. I watched my parents pass away within a year of each other, and one of the last things I said to both of them was, 'Tell her I miss her. She knows how much I love her, and I know how much she loved me. I want her to know how much she is missed." End quote. This year in November 2022, the killer of Nicola will be released into the world to continue his life as a free man, while Nicola had to pay a life sentence for his actions. My thoughts go out to Nicola's family and friends. Hopefully, as a family, they have found some sort of peace, knowing their daughter is back home with them in Ireland. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.